Hey everyone, welcome to week 3 of my Make Something Everyday challenge in 2025. It should be the 13th of January, and I should be telling you about my plans for the week. It is, however, the 18th of January, we're at the end of the week, and I've not made anything. This means I've failed the challenge. So, why did I fail? What does that mean? What does it mean going forward? I figured I'd document it now, have a chat about it, and continue to move on, which is a bit of a spoiler for my decision long term with this. So what went wrong? Well, first and foremost, family all being ill, just it means you're unable to do things, especially with my workshop being, we haven't got above 5 degrees C at any point. Most of the time it's been hovering around zero. Being ill, coming out here to work, even if I had the motivation, even if I had the ideas, wouldn't have been a good idea. It does start to lead to questions about what other makes I can do that don't rely on my workshop, and there's some things coming up that you'll see me explore some other things, some other ways of making, ways of creating. I did spend some time this morning thinking, well, maybe I could argue that I made coffee or that I made sandwiches each day for lunch, but the reality is that none of that is stuff that I wouldn't be doing anyway, and I didn't film any of it, so it's going to be a very short video just to say, hi, I made a sandwich, let's do next week. So this has caused me to rethink the challenge a bit. Obviously, I can't sit in front of you and tell you that I've not done anything, but that I've not failed the challenge. I have. I've technically failed the challenge. But whilst it's tempting to just not make this video, not admit it, I could just quietly not release more videos. My video releasing history has been inconsistent at best. I just hope that nobody notices and it all fades away into, remember that time when you were doing it? But that doesn't feel true to the purpose behind the challenge. The challenge was always about me being accountable for my creativity and my making, giving myself a framework so that I would continue to do it, and just quietly letting it slip away doesn't really help. It's really easy to try and, I guess, hide that failure and see success and failure as absolutes and binary, and it's one or the other, and if you haven't succeeded, you've failed, and to see that as final. So instead of that, and spoiler alert, I've decided to keep going. I've decided to write off this week as that just happens sometimes you're ill, and to continue with the challenge as I go through the rest of 2025. I did, however, feel like it was a great opportunity to look at, I guess, the concept of failure, about how I reacted to that, and that's going to be very much a me thing, but maybe some of you can see a similar thing in yourselves. I'd be very interested to hear in the comments below, or message me if you don't want to do it publicly, about how you deal with failure, how you see failure as a concept. I think it's an interesting discussion, especially within making worlds and creative processes. I suspect many of you who watch my videos are makers or creators or do something creative as a hobby or in your spare time or maybe as your job. I might be wrong, that's not a metric that YouTube has any ability to share with me. But I suspect a lot of you can identify with this feeling of, I set myself a goal, I set myself a target, I've failed to hit that target, what do I do now? How do I react to this? Do I just give up? What does that look like? What do I do? And especially where there is a public face of what you're doing, how you react to it and how you treat that failure, it is, I think, an interesting process and worthy of discussion. In the corporate and entrepreneurial world, there are so many catchphrases around failure. Things like, failure is how we learn, fail forward, fail early and often, just as a few examples, but there are so many out there. Even within the maker community on YouTube and Instagram and all the other social medias, people like Adam Savage, for example, who I suspect we all know and have watched at least one or two of his videos, talks repeatedly. There are many videos of his that include the concept of failure and why it's important to the development process and why it's just part of every project. There are countless TED Talks from people all over the world, all sorts of different backgrounds, talking about the necessity of failure, why failure can be your greatest gift. There's all sorts of titles out there and talks. So widely speaking, failure is an accepted concept, but I feel like it's maybe sometimes accepted at a group level, but it's difficult to accept it at an individual level. So why is it that I, as a maker, as me, default to assuming that failing is an absolute? That's it. The project failed, the challenge failed, the goal failed, and now I just need to quietly hide that away and hope that nobody notices it and we move on from it. I'm sure there are many psychological or social reasons that people much smarter than me, much more knowledgeable than me on the topics, could explain. Things related to childhood, things related to education, things related to the current society we live in. But I think for me, there's potentially an issue in my concept of success rather than in my concept of failure. And I wanted to unpack that a bit and see if it rang true for anybody else out there. If we view success and failure as two sides of a coin, something can only ever be either a success or a failure. And yes, for the pedants out there, yes, it could technically land right on the edge, but it's very unlikely. You get the idea. Heads, it's a success, tails, it's failure, or the other way around. We often see that as binary, and we see it as two opposites. It also means that failure is the only option if something is not 100% a success. If the thing we are making, or the project we're working on, or the challenge we're undertaking is not 100% a success, it's very easy for us to view it as therefore 100% a failure. But the thought I find myself working through is, what if we viewed failure and success as a sliding scale? What if there were an infinite number of points between 100% failure and 100% success? In the moment that we start a project, that project hasn't succeeded. So it cannot be 100% a success. But in that moment we start, nor have we failed. There has to be an in-between. There has to be a middle ground. If we are happy to take the view of success and failure being this sliding scale, then we can continuously update where we sit on that scale with anything we're working on. No single point is somewhere that we, set up home and stay. It is continuously moving. It's continuously updating and adapting to whatever we're dealing with. At some points of the project, we're nearer to the success end and everything's feeling great. At other points, we're nearer the failure end, like I am today, and everything's feeling a bit difficult and a bit rubbish and we're a bit unmotivated. But I've not hit 100% failure, nor when it's feeling good have I necessarily hit 100% success. The only point at which a project can be 100% failure or 100% success is if we stop there. When we have completed the project entirely, we can declare it a success and we stop. If a project has failed to the point where we give up and we walk away and we decide we're not doing it, then yes, it could be deemed 100% failure. But actually, sometimes the project bounces. It heads down to the end, it bounces off and it comes straight back. And a lot of that is down to how we choose to perceive both success and failure. Absolute failure only happens if we declare ourselves to have stopped there. So as I hinted at earlier, my plan is to keep going with the challenge. Have I failed the challenge? Well, you could argue it, yes. I'm seeing it as I've bounced off that end of the scale. We had a week where it didn't happen, but let's keep going. I'm not going to write off the whole challenge based on 1 week where we were all ill and there was perfectly good reasons why I didn't achieve what I had set out to achieve. Whilst I feel a bit down about stuff right now, whilst I feel a bit deflated over the whole thing, it's my choice to bounce off that end of the scale. Tomorrow I can start again and I can keep going. And I can decide that I'm going to make something, I can decide that I'm going to dedicate that time, and that I'm going to continue with the vision and the values of the challenge I had to start with. It wasn't just about, I have to make something every day for no reason. I had reason behind why I wanted to do it, and that reason still stands, and that desire to achieve that reason still stands. So, this is the video for this week. Did I make anything? Well, I made this video. Beyond that, No, I didn't. I was ill. That didn't happen. I've got some exciting stuff coming up. I have a trip down to London coming up, which means I need to work out, well, how do I keep going with the challenge while stuck in a hotel room in London? I don't want to just decide I'm not going to. I want to try. I want to see what I can achieve with it. But I hope this video was useful. I apologise there's no interesting woodworking or projects in it, but hopefully you got something from it. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think. If you want to help me with this challenge, the biggest help ever would be hitting like on the video, subscribing if you're not subscribed, sharing it with people. The further out the video goes, the more input I get, the more feedback I get, and that would be absolutely fantastic. But for now, I will see you next week. I hope you all stay well. I hope everybody has a better week than I have, and I'm looking forward to keeping going with the challenge. Bye.